Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. These are the post-fight reviews for Martin Bakole vs Hurana Osumanu, which was in the United Arab Emirates, and also Kash, who defended his IBF European title versus Roman Gorst. So starting with Martin Bakole, because this was all over lickety-split, and actually Bakole has posted some ringside footage of the stoppage of the world number 584 Hurana Osumanu. So this was a tune-up fight. Bakole comes in, does the job, first round knockout. This was on the undercard of Thor versus Larat. So that was a sort of exhibition, sort of high profile. Thor Bjornsson, the Game of Thrones guy, etc. Strongman against an arm wrestler. But in terms of this action, Martin Bakole versus Hurana Osumanu, yeah, it was what it was, a tune-up fight, and hopefully Martin Bakole, we're going to see him in something a bit more meaningful next up. There has been talk that he's still in line to potentially face Filip Hrgović. Hrgović himself just had a tune-up win a week before Martin Bakole got this win. So talk they could end up making the fight for the IBF final eliminator, which Bakole and his team said they would not consider until he had a tune-up. Tune-up is had. Let's hope they make that fight, because we want to see Bakole in a meaningful fight. Same too with Hrgović, and it makes sense for both guys. They're in that sort of who needs them camp. They need each other. So hopefully that fight can get made, and we can put this this tune-up behind us. Basically, you can see from this footage on screen I've been showing, Bakole just all over Hurana Osumanu. Complete mismatch. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So Kash taking on Roman Gorst. And this was a sort of strange fight in a few ways, because Kash warming into the fight, working behind the jab, first round, starts to come into the fight, second, third, fourth round, really starting to dominate, using the jab, starting to work in the uppercut in rounds 2 and 3. That was a punch, which was good for him in his last fight as well, and really just starting to take control. And you sort of thought Roman Gorst looks a little bit like he's, under the pump here, and is this going to end up being sort of an accumulation style win? But then Kash just took his sort of foot off the throat a little bit, completely took off the 5th round. And Roman Gorst, who is a German domestic level fighter, he was the German champion before he was dethroned in his last fight before this one by Peter Kaderu, found his confidence in round 5, where Ali just sort of went off the boil. Ali, I don't know if it was an issue around stamina and just needing to take a bit of a breather, not really doing anything, not really throwing many punches, allowing Gorst to throw his sort of slappy shots, his arm punches. And it quite interesting as well, if you did catch this, but if you didn't, this will give you the image of what it was like, because Roman Gorst was doing his best Tyson Fury impression that he could. And even the body was sort of similar to Fury's in a way that, big, tall guy, but not necessarily the definition of the body beautiful. But he was switching at different times in this fight from orthodox to southpaw, throwing sort of slappy shots, but clearly he's molded some of his style on Tyson Fury's, and just the way he was moving, some of the herky-jerky movement, just some of his tendencies clearly modeled on Fury, but clearly he was doing a very poor job of it. But there were some, I was thinking, he is really moving a little bit and acting a little bit like Fury here, just not really having a lot of success. A lot of these shots didn't have anything on them, just throwing out these sort of slappy shots, pushing punches, coming in from weird angles sometimes, but not really sort of taking too much of a toll. But clearly it was frustrating Kash to some extent. In the corner, he was getting a little bit frustrated between some different rounds because he wasn't able to implement what he wanted to do all of the time. But he was blowing a little bit hot and cold, because after the sort of round 4, took round 5 off, he came back into it in round 6 a bit, had a few big shots that were coming in, right hands, uppercuts. But it was a case that most of his success in this fight was coming from one-off shots. But you did feel if he'd have pressed the issue a lot earlier and really put it on Gorst, put his shots together, threw some punches in combination, that he could have had a lot more success and hurt Roman Gorst earlier than he eventually ended up doing. So into the 7th round, or towards the end of it, I should say, Kash Ali lands a big overhand right, and clearly it shakes Gorst up. He's immediately on his bike, backing up, circling out of the way, almost running, but then the bell goes. So you sort of thought, okay, well, didn't like that, clearly shaken up. One of the biggest shots of the night. There were a couple of really nice uppercuts earlier in the fight, but Gorst was able to sort of wear those. But this was a different sort of reaction to that punch. And after the 7th round, you thought, okay, well, maybe Kash Ali's going to step it up now, and we're going to see him take him out. But that was taken away from him because Roman Gorst in his corner threw in the towel after that. So didn't come out for the 8th round. There was some speculation on the broadcast. Maybe Ali had broken Gorst's jaw or something similar, but he didn't want it anymore regardless. So retired on his stool after the 7th. And it's all over. So Kash Ali defends his IBF European title. And I guess the question is, what next? Because it's clear he's improving. And I guess I'll say one thing. Even though this probably went longer than some people were expecting, or maybe it should have gone based on some of the parts where Kash Ali was dominant in the fight, 7 rounds is still 7 rounds, so he'll be the better for it. And if he was getting frustrated in there, there's things to work on in the gym that they can kind of go, okay, well, if you encounter this again, these are some of the strategies you can employ, yada, yada, yada. So he will get some benefit from the bits that maybe didn't go quite so well because he can work on those. So he advances to, 20-1 or 21, and he's over 20 fights deep now. But he retains this title, and the question is, what next? And actually, that was asked a couple of times in the post-fight interview. Wasn't really sort of answered by Ali or his promoter, Dennis Hobson, or Dave Allen was asked it directly because he was on commentary. But then Anthony Crowler sort of directed away from that. But I would expect we're going to get similar level opponents for a little while here for Kash Ali. One, because I think these Fight Zone cards probably need Ali, who is one of the bigger names that's in that Fight Zone stable. It's this platform. They've just headline the show. They've got to probably rinse this, but I think Ali as well still needs more time to develop, because if he steps up right now to anyone approaching a dangerous level, he's probably going to get beaten. It was stressed after the fight. He's still a work in progress. But just getting to some of those post-fight comments. So you had Kash Ali saying he's getting better and better under Richard Towers. You had his promoter, Dennis Hobson, saying that in the last couple of fights, including this one, he'd made a statement. I'm not so sure he made a statement in this one. That's just my take. But he did say, Hobson, that Kash Ali is a player in the heavyweight division, and he's one of the next ones coming through, and he's sort of behind Fury, Wilder, Joshua, etc. I mean, at this point, if you were to have tiers and sort of imagine them in your mind, Kash Ali is not in that second tier of heavyweights that's behind the champions. I don't think he's a contender at this point. I mean, you might say he's a fringe contender, but he's got to do more, prove more, fight some guys that are a better level. Let's face it, Roman Gorst is a German domestic fighter. No more, no less. But Hobson said he is a work in progress, and I agree. Hobson said he was frustrated that that Ali could have done a bit better in this fight, could have gone through the gears, that he's got more gears. He sort of beat this guy in second gear instead of going through the gears to fourth and fifth gear, etc. And yeah, I think there's something in that. Kash Ali did sometimes just go off the boil, seemed a little one-paced, just one-off shots, relying on that too much. I think sometimes looking too much for that uppercut. Gorst had his hands down basically for the entirety of the fight. He was open to some hooks and some straight right hands. They could have been landed. But anyway, it's a win. He moves on. And I'm sure the rounds, even though it may not have been a perfect performance or anything approaching it, they will still be beneficial. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.